We're very pleased to have Janice Repka here with us tonight. She's an assistant professor of English and creative writing at Lake Superior State University. She earned her journalism degree from Point Park University in Pittsburgh, a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania, and master's degrees in English and creative writing from McNeese State University in Louisiana. Very impressive. Her first book, The Stupendous Dodgeball Fiasco, was published in 2004. It was a Junior Library Guild selection and earned 4 state awards. Her second book, The Clueless Girl's Guide to Being a Genius, was published last year. Copies, as you saw, are available in the back after her talk. Her talk is titled The Wonderful World of Dodgeballs and Flying Frogs, Writing Books Kids Can Love. Please welcome Janice Repka.
Thank you. It's really nice to see such a mixed crowd here. It looks like we have some teachers and some readers, some younger kids in the crowd, some writers. So that's nice because hopefully my talk will sort of touch on all of those different things. I want to tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to this place in my journey, and read a little bit from my books, and hopefully we can have a little bit of fun. So where I started, well, I certainly didn't start off thinking I was going to write books for children. I did love to write when I was young, but I was very shy, if you can believe that. And I didn't have a lot of self-confidence, so I would do poetry or short stories or just anything that I wanted to write. And then when I was done with it, I would hide it under the bed. And I just had years and years and years of things that I kept under the bed because I didn't really think it was for sharing. I thought that writing was something that you did and you just sort of kept it to yourself. And I never really let it out into the world. As I got older, I wanted to find a way to make a living as a writer. But again, I wasn't quite sure how you do that. So I followed sort of a different path than most people. I didn't go on to college right away. I came from a family with 8 children, and it just wasn't possible for us to all do that. So instead, I joined the Army, and I became a military journalist. So they taught me how to write Army stories. And so that was a lot of fun, and I got to learn a lot more about writing. And then after that, I decided to go to journalism school when I got out of the military. So I did that, and while I was in journalism school, I met someone who was going to go on to law school. And so she was very, very excited about it. And we talked about legal writing, and I started reading court cases, and I thought, wow, this is great. They give you both sides, and someone decides. It's also nice and wrapped up, and I really liked that. And I thought maybe that's what I really want to write about. So I went to law school, and I learned how to write legal opinions, and I worked for a judge, and I probably wrote 100 legal opinions for him, and I really enjoyed doing that. And I got married and I had a family and I was a normal person, but I still had this secret that I really, really loved to write things just for myself that I was keeping hidden. And at some point I decided, you know what, I have to stop keeping it inside. I want to sort of see what I could do with this writing. So I started sending things out, and I started getting things accepted and winning some prizes for my writing, and it really motivated me. And I thought, you know what I should do? I should write a book. I'm going to write a book. And then I started, and I kept realizing, I don't know how to write a book. What am I trying to do here? So I said to myself, you know what, I think the reason you're having so much trouble is you're trying to write a great book. And every time you write something, you look at it and you say, this isn't good enough. So I said, I'm going to write a stupid book. I'm going to write a fun book. I'm just going to write a book that I can let myself go and enjoy writing. And when I'm all the way done writing that book, I'm going to throw it in the trash, because it's not going to be any good. It's just going to be for me to learn how to write a book. So that's what I set out to do, was to learn how to write a book by writing a book. And I wanted it to be fun. So I thought, well, what do I know enough about to write a whole novel? So I thought, well, let's see. I know about the law, right? So I should write a book about the law, but that's going to be really boring, and I don't want to write something boring. So I thought, well, let me try to think of something funny that could happen in the law. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking of all those arguments I heard where the attorneys acted like children in the courtroom. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if there really was a child who was a lawyer in the courtroom? So that's what I decided to do, is to go with a young boy who has to represent himself in court. And then I had to figure out, well, why is he in court? How did he get there? So I thought, well, I needed to be a simple dispute, something not too alarming. So I thought back of those old days when I was in elementary school, and you'd go to dodgeball, and you would go to gym, and by the end of the class, somebody was walking out of there with some black electrical tape on their glasses, holding them together. And I thought, you know what, I could have dodgeball be a big part of the story. And there weren't a lot of books out there about dodgeball. There's very few even now. So that was another element I wanted to add. And then I thought, well, so far it doesn't sound fun. And I told myself I'm going to have fun doing this. So I decided I was going to add a third element. I was going to add the circus. Because what's more fun than the circus? So I took that little boy who was going to get his glasses broken in a dodgeball game, and I set him in the circus. His parents were circus performers. His mother is the fat lady, and his father is Leo Laugh-A-Lot, a clown. And Philip, who's the protagonist of the book, his problem is that he doesn't want to be in the circus. He wants to be normal. His parents keep buying him circus toys, like, well, we gave him stilts. Why didn't he like his stilts? And what about that sword-swallowing kit? Why didn't he like that? But Philip just wants to be a regular boy. So he convinces his parents, look, circus life is for you, but maybe it's not for me. Can I go live with my aunt and uncle in Hardingtown? Because, you know, I want to be normal. Just give me a chance to go there for a year and see if I can, you know, go to a regular school and enjoy my life that way. So they agree to do it. But as it turns out, Harding is the unofficial dodgeball capital of the world. Everyone plays it, everyone loves it. I guess you could consider it a little bit like the, you know, hockey obsession, whatever you want to compare it to. My model for it was really, if you've ever, well, you know Hershey chocolate. I don't know if you know, there's Hershey, Pennsylvania, where Hershey chocolate is made. Everything is chocolate themed. The streets are brown. It actually smells like chocolate in the town. There are little chocolate kisses for lamp posts. I mean, it's just everywhere. It perverts everything. So I thought, well, let's do that with dodgeball. So I had a lot of fun writing it. And what I'd like to do is go ahead and read one of the chapters in the book. This is a chapter where Philip has already arrived and got to know his aunt and uncle, but he's about to start his first day of school. So I'm going to read that chapter to you. And one of the things I purposely did in this book, because I was trying to learn how to write a book, and wasn't really thinking that I was going to actually end up getting it published, was I added all these sensory details to make it really interesting and exciting. So one thing you can do while you're listening is you can try to see, can you hear the sensory details? So not just what the boy sees or what the boy hears, but also things like, what does he smell? Is there anything smelly in the book? What does he feel? So listen for those things while I read along. All right, chapter 5. It starts out. Circus lingo is confusing to outsiders. For example, a circus cookhouse is called a pie car, but the term cherry pie means doing extra work for extra pay. If you go to the pie car and order cherry, you're likely to be washing dishes on an empty stomach. Philip found non-circus lingo equally confusing. Cat got your tongue? Uncle Felix asked him between bites of crunchy breakfast cereal the next morning. A fruity puff dripped off the edge of his mouth and landed back in his bowl. He was a thick-necked man with ferociously curly blonde hair that made his head look huge. Together with his chunky torso, skinny legs, and petite feet, it created a strangely shaped body that resembled an upside-down juggling pin, exactly the opposite of Aunt Viola, and yet a perfect upside-down fit. Uncle Felix's lips rested so little, Philip wondered if he talked in his sleep. Huh? Philip said. I know you're probably nervous about starting school this morning, but let your wise old uncle set your mind at ease. He cocked his finger and pointed it at Philip like a water pistol. You're going to have a great first day. Philip sighed. I hope so. I know so, said Uncle Felix. I remember my first day of 5th grade like it was yesterday, one of the best days of my life. You mean 6th grade, said Philip. Oh no, I mean 5th grade. My first day of 6th grade was a complete disaster. But I'm going into 6th grade, said Philip. Oh, sorry, said Uncle Felix. I forgot. He passed Philip the box of cereal. Better eat. Don't want your stomach rumbling all morning. Philip sprinkled cereal into his bowl while Uncle Felix recited the list of vitamins and minerals the box promised in every serving. The tiny, hard balls pounded against the ceramic with clinking sounds. He poured in milk and watched the balls floating. Philip always lost his appetite when he was worried about something, but he didn't want to make stomach noises. Go on, said Uncle Felix. Fill her up. Philip forced the spoon into his mouth and chewed. The cereal was too sweet, and the milk tasted like it was about to go bad. Haven't thought of my first day of 6th grade in a long time, said Uncle Felix. Everything that could go wrong did. First, I wore the wrong clothes. completely out of style. Philip looked at his blue jeans and plain gray t-shirt. Was he dressed okay? His ears felt warmer, like they always did when he got nervous or upset. Then I lost my lunch money and had to borrow from the office. Philip thought about a hole he had in the pocket of his jeans. Which side had he put his money into? He took a paper napkin from the holder on the table and wiped his sweaty forehead. Then when I got to science class, there was this horrible smell, and I threw up all over the science teacher. Philip dropped his spoon. It walked into his bowl, sending milk splattering. His ears were so hot they felt sunburned. I have to go, Philip said, darting from his chair. I don't want to be late. Good idea, said Uncle Felix. You'll get detention if you're late. Philip rushed to the front door. If you ever need to talk about your worries again, Uncle Felix called after him. Philip was out the door before he could hear anything more. As soon as he got down the hill, he felt better. The walk to school gave him a chance to cool down. Aunt Viola had written him directions to Hardingtown Middle School, and he found it with ease. But once he was close up, the 3-story brick building seemed huge and intimidating. The inside was even worse. It was a maze of halls and classrooms. The map the officewoman gave him did not show the floor plan. It only listed numbers and subjects. Philip wondered what the numbers meant. A bell rang and the children hurried into classrooms. Then he was quiet. Philip crept down the hall, peering into each window. The rooms were large, and so were the students. Everything seemed huge except him. Hey, you, a deep voice boomed. Philip swung around so quickly he practically knocked the voice over. It belonged to a lanky girl with shoulder-length black hair. She was wearing khaki pants and a red t-shirt with a big check mark at the top. A faded blue sash hung from her left shoulder to her right hip. Get to class, she said. Philip froze. The girl took a step closer. I said, get to class. Philip looked at the classroom to his left and the one to his right. Either one had to be better than staying in the hall. Give me your schedule, the girl snapped. My what? Philip asked. Your schedule, she repeated, your class schedule. You mean my map? He asked, holding the paper up. The girl snatched it. First period English, she read. Room 209, it's over there. Thank you, Hall, Philip said. What did you call me? She asked. Philip looked at the name patch sewn on her blue sash. The end of it was curled inward so that he couldn't read the entire thing. Hall, he said. Are you trying to be a wise guy? No, your name tag says Hall. Isn't that your name? The girl glanced down at her sash and swept the drooping patch back. Hall Monitor, it said. My name, she said, is B.B. Tyson, and for your information, nobody makes fun of B.B. Tyson. She held the schedule out and let it drop to the floor. Get to class. B.B. turned and stormed off. Philip scooped up the paper and raced to room 209. Once he got settled in his seat, his breathing returned to normal. He noticed the kids raised their hands before speaking. They also handed one another papers rolled into triangles. Mr. Morton, a thin-haired man with a long beard, was talking and holding up books they would be required to read. He took a piece of squeaky chalk and wrote on the board, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Groans were heard, although Philip, who had already read the novel, was pleased. When his mom tutored him, he read one piece of classical literature each week. Reading was his favorite subject. By the end of class, the churning in Philip's stomach was gone. The kid behind him told Philip how to find his next classroom, and the class after that he found on his own. At lunch, someone asked what school he went to before. Philip didn't want the kids to know about his circus past, so he only said he had a tutor. A group of kids in polo shirts let him sit with them. They talked about preparatory academies. They asked him what it was like to have a private tutor. He said it was lonely, especially since he had no brothers or sisters. After that, Philip mostly ate his watery spaghetti, nodded, and smiled. In geography, Philip raised his hand when a teacher asked, where was Walla Walla? He knew the answer was the state of Washington because the Windy Van Hooten Circus had been there. But the teacher had called on the girl sitting in front of him. Philip checked his schedule. His last class was gym. What was gym? There was no classroom number listed. Philip turned down a new hallway. He saw double doors. The glass in the doors was covered in wire netting. Above the doors it said gymnasium. Philip looked inside. It was like a circus arena without the tent. In the center was a performing area. Basketball hoops hung from the sides. A knotted rope spilled down from the ceiling in the corner. Boys and girls sat on the bleachers that lined the walls. Philip went in and sat with them. A man wearing a black baseball cap was in the front of the crowd. He had a dimpled chin and a silver whistle that hung from a string around his neck. When he blew the whistle to quiet the crowd, Philip half expected to see clowns ride unicycles onto the floor. The man introduced himself as the coach and told them they would have gym class every Monday. He talked about gym clothes and teamwork and pushing hard. He He had a clipboard. Each time he said something, he would raise his clipboard and make a mark. After he was done, he asked if there were any questions. Philip thought about asking why the gym smelled like dirty socks when everyone had their shoes on, but he decided against it. Coach looked at his watch. "We still have 15 minutes. Let's play a little dodgeball," he said. "Count off." Philip heard the kids around him. 1, 2, 1, 2, they said. So when the kid next to him said 1, Philip said 2. "One's on the left, 2's on the right," said Coach. The group split in half and the kids went to opposite sides of the gym. Coach placed 3 balls along a line in the middle of the gym. The stiff, inflatable balls were made of the kind of hard, grooved rubber that looked like it could remove skin at high speeds. Coach blew his whistle. Kids from both sides ran to grab the balls. One kid tumbled head over heels as another beat him to a ball. The kid who got the ball cocked his tongue and threw the ball over the line at the other team. To Philip, the players looked like clowns chasing one another around the circus ring, throwing custard pies. A kid jumped with both feet as a ball whizzed past ankle high. His teammate grabbed the ball and sent it zooming back. A petite girl with a ponytail took it in the side and splattered onto the floor. "You're out," Coach yelled. The girl crawled to the bleachers. The boy who threw the ball chuckled. It reminded Philip of the time his dad had given him the unicycle. As soon as he managed to balance himself, the clowns began chasing him, throwing pies. He had hid from them on the trapeze platform for hours, until Bartholomew the Giant finally came and helped him down. Philip still had nightmares about clowns throwing pies, trying to land one on his kisser. Nothing frightened him more than the thought of lemon meringue stuck in his nostrils. Nothing until now. Each time a kid got hit, the coach yelled, "Out!" and pointed. The kid who got hit would have to sit on the bleachers. Philip could practically see the whipped cream streaming down their humiliated faces. He could hardly believe the kids with balls were purposely aiming at ones without them. Whack! A boy standing near the line got it in the gut. Whack! A girl who had turned to run got it in the back. A ball zipped so close to Philip, he could hear the air scream. The girl next to him twisted to avoid a low ball. She slipped, and the ball hit her as she lay on the ground. A circular red spot formed on her exposed back thigh before she staggered away. Philip had lost 3/4 of his team. Fewer kids meant more balls thrown his way. He caught a glimpse of the clock. Maybe if he could survive until the bell, he backed himself into the far corner. "Get the new kid!" yelled a familiar voice. It was B.B. Tyson, the hall monitor. She lobbed a screamer right at him. It barely missed. There was no place to go. Philip's head brushed against the rope hanging from the ceiling. He jumped for the rope, grabbed the end, and began yanking himself up as fast as he could. B.B. unleashed another screamer at him. "Get him!" she hollered. A ball zoomed by as he climbed. The rope swung, making him harder to hit. Closer to the ceiling, the ball stopped short. He was safe. "Hey, Tarzan!" yelled B.B. She tossed her ball and beat her chest. "Ah!" she roared. "It's George of the Jungle!" another kid shouted. Philip surveyed the herd of 6th graders. Most of the kids who weren't making fun of him were bent over with laughter. Coach blew his whistle. "That's enough," he said. As if on cue, the bell rang, and the pack of howling children raced out of the gym. They were gone. Philip breathed a sigh of relief. Whew. Until he realized he was still 20 feet in the air, and like a cat stuck in a tree, afraid to climb back down. So that's chapter 5, and you can see there's actually a picture here. The book has some illustrations, some line art in it. Philip climbing up that rope, so it's a lot of fun. So one other thing I want to point out about the book is you probably heard that strange beginning and were wondering what I was doing when I was talking about pie cars. One of the things I did for the book was I did a lot of research on the circus. I wanted it to be all authentic. So all of the facts in the book are either true circus facts or they're you could call it true circus folklore. So it's things about the circus that are stories that have been passed down that are authentic. So that was one of them that I wanted to include. But at the beginning of each chapter, it has one of these little pieces of circus folklore. I tried to keep them fun. So I'll read a couple of those to you. Chapter 8, it starts off saying, "Tigers don't wear circus costumes. Horses, camels, monkeys, even elephants can be outfitted, no matter how ridiculously to suit the performer's fancy, but you cannot force a big cat into a tutu." If you've ever noticed, you go to the circus, you don't see those cats wearing anything. Here's another one. "Most people think clowns are disorganized, but in each circus there is one clown who is the boss clown. The boss clown is in charge of the other clowns. You can't even pull a rubber chicken out of your pants unless the boss clown approves. And I'll read you one more. Pink lemonade was created accidentally by a circus vendor who used a bucket of water that another performer had washed her red tights in. Whenever someone's being careless because they're rushing, circus performers would say they're making pink lemonade. So I did that sort of to make the book more fun and more interesting for kids. So anyways, as you can see, I didn't throw it out when I was done. So when I was done, a lot of people said they enjoyed reading the parts of it that I was sharing, and so they encouraged me to send it in. So I read up on how you do that, and I realized I would need an agent. So I sent out some query letters, and I got an agent, and fortunately he was able to place it right away. It was just one of those nice coincidences that happens, that he liked the manuscript, and the day after he got it, he was lunching with an editor who he thought might like it. He mentioned it to her, and she said she wanted to see it. So it was I just got really fortunate, and I sent it in, and it was Dutton's Children's Books, which is a division of Penguin, and they went ahead and purchased it. And then they got this really great illustrator to do all the pictures inside and out. So that was great. Then after that, I realized that I really did enjoy writing for children. I enjoy writing humor in particular. My day job as an attorney, and subsequently when I decided to go back to school and get my MFA in creative writing, I do write a lot more serious stuff. I write literary fiction as well. I've been published online and in various literary journals. So that's sort of my heavy work, and this is sort of my fun work that I also like to do. So I wanted to write another children's book, and that's how I ended up writing The Clueless Girl's Guide to Being a Genius. I had accomplished a lot of what I set out to with my first book, but with my second book, what I really wanted to do was to try and push myself harder to find a voice for my character. I wanted to work better with point of view and making my characters sound really real and different from each other. And that led me to this book. The Clueless Girl's Guide is, some people call it a girl book. It didn't start out being called The Clueless Girl's Guide. It started out being called Frog Feathers. And then we had like 6 other titles before we finally got to The Clueless Girl's Guide. It's sort of hard to peg. It's a strange book. But the publisher really wanted to go with the girly theme, so you can see we actually have an anti-boy cover here, among other things. But it alternates the POV, so what that means is that the first chapter is written from one character's perspective, and it's written in first person, and then the second chapter is written from the other characters. There's 2 girls in the book that are almost co-protagonists, and it switches back and forth, and they're telling the same story, but each one of them is telling it from their perspective during that point in time that the story is occurring. So it's a lot different in tone from my first book. But I really had a lot of fun writing it as well. I'll go ahead and read. I'm going to read the first chapter of this one. I will say with my first book, there are a couple lesson plans for schools out there on this book, so if you're interested, if you're a teacher, you can find those online. And I also have sort of a trivia quiz that I do with the kids sometimes. Sometimes we do it in person, and I bring the kids up and we ask them some trivia and have a lot of fun. Or they can go online to my website, and there's a kids page that you can usually find if you follow the links, and you can take the trivia quiz there, and if you get all the questions right, I send you a prize. So the parents might not be thrilled about it because it's a fun prize. Okay, so this is the Clueless Girl's Guide. Okay, this first chapter is Aphrodite Wigglesmith Gets It Started. Here's something fun you can do. First, get out of your chair. I'm trusting you on that. Next, stand in an open space. Trusting you again. Now, spin like a quantum mechanical particle, or a top, or a tornado, whatever. Faster, faster, stop. Did you feel it? That slip in time moment when your brain hadn't caught up with your body and it felt like you were still spinning? I love that. It's like my body has outsmarted my brain, which is not easy to do. Excuse the pun, but my brain kind of has a mind of its own. If you put a math problem, no matter how hard, in front of my eyes, it sets off this switch, and I have to try to solve it. So my life's been a little weird, I guess you could say. The weirdness started the day someone flushed a firecracker down the toilet in the boys' bathroom on the second floor of Carnegie Middle School. The potty shattered, a weak pipe burst, and sewage water rained down in the school office below. "Holy crap," Principal DeGuy yelled to his secretary. "Get someone here fast." My mother, Cecilia Wigglesmith, was the plumber on call that day. She loaded crescent wrenches and extra piping into her truck while I climbed into my car seat. Although only 4 years old, I was already a mini version of my mother physically, petite with pale skin and black hair. But intellectually, I was bored silly and hungering for stimulation. To keep busy on the way to the plumbing job, I counted each church we passed on the left and each bar we passed on the right, and I kept a working ratio. A few miles later, a sign announced we'd reached Carnegie Middle School, home to the division championship wrestling team, the Carnegie Spiders. The school was 10 times as long as my house and 5 times as wide. Inside the office, Mother set me down on a desk. "You stay here where I found the shut-up valve," she said. She turned to the secretary. "I hope you don't mind keeping an eye on my daughter. I'll be back as soon as things are under control." The secretary was also perched on top of a desk. She was wearing a flamingo pink dress and held up her right foot. Her right shoe must have dropped off when she hopped up and was floating out the door. The smell alone would have reduced most 4-year-olds to tears, but to me, it just smelled like Mother had come home from work. After Mother left, a piece of soaked ceiling towel fell and splattered us with sewage water. The secretary screamed and I jumped. The office phones began to ring. I counted the number of rings, I counted the number of ceiling chunks that fell, and the number of times we screamed and jumped. I found that 5 rings plus 1 splash equals 1 scream plus 1 jump. "You've got a shattered toilet and a busted pipe in the boys' room," Mother said when she returned. "Can you fix it?" asked Principal DeGuy, following her. He was middle-aged, but most of his hair hadn't made it that far. What was left was covering his head in a U shape. "We're scheduled for state testing in the morning, so I can't cancel school." "Once the pipe's repaired, I'll have to bail," said Mother. "Pumps will only pull so many gallons per hour. You've got 4 inches of water on the first floor, 18 in the basement. Goodness knows how long that could take." 3 hours and 25 minutes, I said. Despite his ample ears, Principal DeGuy did not seem to hear. "I'm not interested in what goodness knows," he told Mother. "How long will you need to get this water out?" 3 hours and 25 minutes, I said again. "Whose child is this?" Mother picked me up and held me against her hip. "She's mine. Do you have a calculator?" Principal DeGuy pulled out his computerized planner. Mother told him to take the formula to figure out how long it would take. 3 hours and 25 minutes, he said. They stared at me. "How did you do that?" Mother asked. I shrugged and counted the number of teeth in Principal's open mouth. "You gave her the answer," he said. "I'm sure it was just a coincidence," Mother replied. "Aphrodite is usually so quiet, you don't even know she's in the room." A chunk of ceiling towel fell and splashed Principal DeGuy with water. The secretary screamed again. "I'd better get those pumps started. Would you mind?" Mother handed me to the principal and splashed her way out. He set me on a desk. "How many polka dots are on my tie?" he asked. I used my method for counting cereal boxes at the supermarket. The number up multiplied by the number sideways. Then I took some away because of the funny shape at the bottom of the necktie. 157, I answered. Principal DeGuy hopped onto the desk with me and emptied the water from his shoes. "Who is the Queen of England?" "I don't know." "What is 157 multiplied by 23? I pushed the bangs out of my eyes. 3,611? He ran the numbers. Holy human calculator. The secretary handed him a telephone, and he dialed the number for the Office of Special and Gifted Testing. "Little lady," he told me, "if you are what I think you are, your whole world is about to change." And boy, did it ever. Not that I'm complaining. Once they found out my IQ was 204, they let me start school early. It was like a game to see how quickly I could pass each grade. 5th took only 8 weeks, and I skipped 2nd, 6th, and 10th grades completely. But then, when I was 11, they ran out of grades, so I had to go away to college. So now I'm a 13-year-old graduate student at Harvard University. At Harvard, everybody's brain is on overdrive all the time. So sometimes, when my brain is full of numbers and it feels like I'm going to explode, I slip away to an empty field on the edge of campus, and then I stretch out my arms and I spin. So hopefully you can hear the difference in the voice in that piece. One thing you'll notice with my work as well is that I put a lot of effort into the beginning of the story. I think it's really important, the beginning of the story and the beginning of each chapter, to really try to get it as close to perfect as you can, to try to get the reader's interest and hold the reader's interest and really please the reader the whole way through. Because I do want to write books that children enjoy, not just books that, I know there are a lot of books they're forced to read, but I like to be the book that they're reading on the sly instead of the book they're being forced to read. So I thought, just for fun, I would bring in some information about beginnings, also for those of us who are writers in the audience. Getting the beginning right is not something that usually happens in the first try. It doesn't for me. The challenge is to keep over and over again revising it until you get it. So most of you have probably heard of Charlotte's Web, I would assume. Okay, classic. Do you think that was the first beginning that he picked when he wrote that story? No, it wasn't. He tried, let's see, 8 times. He had 8 different beginnings. So he would write it and thought he had it, and then he would go back to it later and go, uh-oh, that's not it. And he tried over and over again. And I have some of those beginnings here. So I'm going to read some of the beginnings that E.B. White had when he was trying to put together Charlotte's Web. Okay? So the first thing he said was, Charlotte was a big gray spider who lived in a doorway. But there's no use talking about Charlotte until we have talked about her best friend, a pig named Wilbur. Just like, okay start. It's about a spider. Then he said, no, I'm going to try something different. So the second one was, a barn can have a horse in it, and a barn can have a cow in it, and a barn can have hens scratching in the chaff, but if a barn hasn't got a pig in it, it is hardly worth talking about. So you can see the dramatic difference. Now we're focused on that pig. And still, he did what you do as a writer. You put it away for a while, and you look at it again, and you say, didn't really yank me into the story yet. So here's another effort. He said, I shall speak first of Wilbur, but there is no use talking about Wilbur until we have looked into the matter of the barn. So you can see sort of his struggle of, where do I start the focus of this story? And I'll give you one more before I give you the actual one. At midnight, John Arbull pulled his boots on, lit a lamp, and walked out through the woods to the hog house. So now we're getting closer to that original, and you can see that he stopped focusing on just the scene or just the animal, and he's focusing on the conflict that starts with the human characters. And then we have our final version, which is the version that you all know and love. Where's Papa going with that axe? Said Fern to her mother as they were setting the table for breakfast. So how can you not read when you have a little girl asking, where's Papa going with that axe? At the beginning of a story. So, so hopefully, if you are a writer, you will take that kind of journey that E.B. White took, where you keep trying and trying to get it to the point where you're really happy with it and you're really pleased with it. I think more than anything that's what I've learned is that to a large degree, I'm back where I was before. Being a little girl, I'm writing what I like for myself because it's fun, and focusing on really enjoying it. The difference now is I sort of open it up and let it out into the world. So, so I guess I'll open it up to questions now. If anyone wants to ask me anything, you can ask me about the books, about my process, or if you want to know anything about publishing, if you're a writer yourself, any questions, I am yours. Any questions? Yes.
Did you write several beginnings?
Yes, I did. I did. In the Dodgeball Fiasco, the second chapter was the first chapter at first, and then my agent said he thought that I needed to back up a little. It started at when he was at the train station, getting on the train, and there really, you couldn't see where he had been. So it was important for me to show him in his regular world before I showed him going off onto his journey. So that was a major. And this book as well, I had a lot of different beginnings. I don't think I've saved them all. I wonder if E.B. White has saved everything as meticulously. Any other questions? Okay, so like I said, if you're a kid and you're interested, you can take the trivia quiz online, and I'll send you a secret prize. I can show you the secret prize if you come up, but don't let your parents see it. If you'd like a book, they have them in the back. If you don't want a book but you'd still like to talk to me, or if you'd like an autograph, I have bookmarks up here. So you can come up and get a bookmark, select the one you want, and I will autograph it for you. So thank you very much.